Good evening, everybody. Well, good morning. It's the pollinator, and I thought you know what? Every time I start moving papers around and stuff like that, I start making a lot of noise with the phone. So, pardon me for that. Anyway, as you can see, I'm dressed up from a show that I did last night, and actually, it went until shortly after midnight today, and I am the terminal night owl. Um, well, I've always been this way. I take after my mother, and she and I could hang till the sun came up. When we weren't working, we'd hang out together, go to, both of us like breakfast. So we hit every breakfast place in the Bay Area that we could find. That was when we lived in California together. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This is, even though I've had a couple of requests and I'm actually behind on topics that I wanted to talk about, this is an extension of the last vlog I made about trans men in the media. And a gentleman by the name of Jaden and I, we did not know each other. We did not know who each other was when we got pulled into the show. But it was this wonderful group of trans women who's got a lot on the ball. They are so black trans women in general are so far ahead of this entire movement. And one of the ladies on the show explained something that rang pretty true for me, or it held a lot of weight to me, and that one of the major reasons why they got such a jump start in the entire industry in this country is because of something very devastating, statistically speaking. It's not that it doesn't happen for trans men, but it happens more with trans women, and it started before many of these women transitioned to trans women, which is HIV and AIDS. In what was then the LGBT community. I was in California when that whole epidemic broke out, and it turned me from the dog that I was to, it took me down huge notches on my sexual activities, because I didn't want to get HIV. I didn't want to get AIDS. In fact, HIV didn't even exist as a word when it broke out. It was just flat out, you had AIDS or you didn't have AIDS. And I saw so many men pass away, gay men pass away, while I was in the Bay Area, while it was happening. And I kept praying and hoping that, because I had a lot of unprotected sex. I am a heterosexual male. I only deal with females. I am not a virgin, so I'm not, I wasn't one of those, what do they call them? Oh, I forget now because it's been so long. But I wasn't one of those lesbians who had never been touched by men, physically, sexually, anything like that. I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and I also had such a very crazy case of penis envy. So much so that I was willing to play with men, praying like hell they did not want to have intercourse with me. I do not like penetration whatsoever. And so I never, I just wanted to play with their danglings, okay? Because I thought that's what was supposed to be on my body in the first place. So, as a child, as a teenager, you know, puberty is insane anyway. So, we get things all fucked up in our head about who we are, what our identity is. And I was definitely in the middle of that confusion when I was a teenager. There were a couple of things that happened later in life when it came to men, but it was always somehow related to the women in their lives, or well, the other one was a different story. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. This thing about gay men, trans women having the edge on media, on writing books, on being on television, being in the movies, being anywhere you look at it, they're just like leaps and bounds ahead of us. And I don't remember if I mentioned, well, yeah, okay, when I posted the vlog and yes, my last vlog into groups of men, trans men, they thought, because I used the word stealth so much, that I was talking about being stealth or not stealth versus the media, which is really what I really had intended to talk about. But even I got sidetracked into that conversation about whether to be stealth or not stealth, when I may repeat myself, so because I did make notes about my last vlog, but I didn't open them. I wanted to get online while everything was fresh in my head, and not speak from notes. But there are places in society where I do not disclose. So that's why the word stealth is kind of ridiculous, because stealth or not stealth isn't really the issue. It's whether who you're around, whether you disclose or you don't disclose that you're transgender. I'm not walking around in everyday life with transgender stamped on my forehead. No. So there are some settings in which I am that way, but I don't even want to really even talk about that word, because it's irrelevant in the conversation of, well, it's not irrelevant, because that is virtually why we're not in the media, in all forms of media, not just one form, but in all forms, is because of that word and trans men's ability to move around society as cisgender men. Once we get... Let me tell you something that happens for those of you who don't know, because you may not be transgender watching this vlog. There are groups, lots of them on Fuckerbook, where, and it happened to me too, but I didn't do it in groups, where I was so damn anxious to pass as male that, which means, our features change, we end up with hair on our face, we may end up going bald. I mean, a lot of things happen physically while on testosterone. And because a lot of us are not 6 feet tall and over that, we pass, a lot of men pass, trans men pass as lesbians until they can pass as male. So they're flying under the radar. And transgender women can't do that. But it doesn't, a lot of them can't do that. Majority of them can't do that. It takes a lot of money, and it takes a transgender person who wants to be feminine takes a lot of money for them to do all that. So a lot of them, it's very obvious that they're transgender women, or that, or people mistake them for drag queens, or people mistake them for the old word of transvestite, or people mistake them because of their height, because of their features don't necessarily soften up to the point of cisgender women, and so they're moving around having a completely different experience than trans men have, where we're flying under the radar until we can pass. Now, personally, I didn't fly under the radar. I have never been stealth. I've been making vlogs since I was 6 months on testosterone, before the hair started showing up, before my features really took hold and whatnot. That did not stop me from doing life the way I did life, whether I told anybody I was transgender or not. But it so happened that I hung around, well, I went to a lot of groups. Okay, I went to 3 different groups in this area, including the Veterans Administration, the VA. That was the first group that I went to. So I was already very excited and not afraid to move around, even before I passed as male. Because there were a lot of places where they, to this day, I'm still having to correct them because they knew me from before. I go to a lot of restaurants, so, and my family knows too, so some of them have issues with my pronouns, and I changed my name legally. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. How we are going to be visible while being invisible, and is a dilemma, because a lot of trans men are not willing to put themselves out there, because guess what? In the wrong body, no matter how much testosterone we're on, we do not have the physical strength that cisgender men do. And for people who don't know what cisgender means, it just means you identify with the gender that's on your birth certificate, basically. The doctors call it. Unfortunately, for intersex people, that's a different story, because when the doctors call their gender out at birth, they end up doing something that may be the wrong thing to do for that person. In other words, intersex people are born with a combination of genitals. So if the doctor called it male, if the doctor called the baby a male, and the baby didn't get to decide, the doctors and the parents do. So they end up performing surgeries on intersex people. Anyway, so we cannot physically, there's a lot of fear going on, because, we get into it with these cisgender people, physically, men. We're going to lose that fight. Because we don't have the physical strength that they do. And I'm not even sure, I've never talked to a bodybuilder, and I don't know if bodybuilding combined with testosterone will give you the same strength as if you were born with a male body. I don't know. But that is the reason why our experience is so much different than trans women. And the fact that, again, they were socialized as boys. So different doors are open for men in society than women. We didn't get those doors opened growing up, going through our first puberty, growing into adulthood. We either had to be very, very aggressive women or aggressive women that kicked open doors, or not. And then, because that's how society saw us, even though we didn't feel that way. I never felt that way. There are some trans men out there who identify as trans men, and they never felt that way as children. But I did. And I thought I was a boy until my body told me otherwise. And then, what happened at birth, my brain caught up with it. Then I was freaked out, completely freaked out. So how are we going to be visible, have as many resources, end up on TV, write books, be published when, as trans men? See, there's a double-edged sword going on there. And then there's a triple sword going on there if you're black. We're even more invisible than white trans men, okay? So, they take up a whole lot of fucking space. Whether they were white women or white trans men, they take up a lot of space. So we're even more invisible. And the fact that our experience of being identified and seen as black women, and then suddenly being identified and seen as black men. You see what's going on with black men in society, right? We're stepping into a world white trans men aren't stepping into. So even our experience is completely different than theirs. And trust me, I have seen this, people trying to make me a lot smaller than I actually am, if they're not black. And then you got trans women doing the same thing. And I think I mentioned that in my last vlog. And it's almost not even intentional. It's subconsciously, because of the way they were socialized. We end up they want us to be less seen than heard. Just like we experienced all of our childhood. And our years in school. But we do have a big dilemma to solve, trans men, because we're not going to get the resources if we don't speak up. If we don't somehow get over the fear of confrontation and the fear of any kind of confrontation, be it verbal, physical, could even be sexual, Yeah. Because if, there's a lot of bullshit going on with the cisgender community. Oh, cisgender, I forgot to say what that is. Oh, okay, you're assigned, you identify with the gender you're assigned at birth, and transgender is just the opposite. We don't identify with the gender we were assigned at birth. That's it. Simple. So, I've talked about a guy named Kai Peterson who I don't know the entire story. I don't even know big, huge chunks of the story. But he got sexually assaulted by a cisgender man, and he defended himself, and he killed him, and he's still rotting in jail somewhere in Georgia. So it happens to us. That is the fear. That, people will wonder what's still on our body, whether or not we've had surgery or not, blah, 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 and then make some kind of fucked up decision based on the answer to that. Which is why we don't disclose unless it's safe to do so. Then you've got a whole group of people, and I'm just gonna call it this website called Black Planet. I was sitting there in 2016, and some guy put a post on that site saying, oh, he was pissed. He was upset because he had been talking to a transgender woman and did not know she was transgender until he tried to come on to her. And when he tried that, she told him. So he was running off at the mouth in a post on that website. And everybody was pissed off and upset and said, well, they should disclose up front. No. Why? So you can have every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Susie and Mary and Shaniqua and everybody else come looking for him to kill him? It is a safety issue for us. Fuck your ego and fuck your feelings. If you think we should broadcast all over the world that we're transgender before you even talk to us, that is the biggest piece of shit insanity I've ever heard in my life. That's like, because you know what? His ego was hurt. He still wanted to do something to that trans woman. He didn't know whether she had surgery or not. He was just mouthing off in there, and then he got a whole bunch of other people mouthing off in there. And I said something. I spoke up and said, are you nuts? That is dangerous. You don't put that in your profile anywhere. At that time, that's how I felt anyway. And then I left that site, never to return. I've gone and checked back since, but I got on there for like 10, 15 minutes and got back off. But the world is absolutely insane right now about transgender people. And they're making all sorts of judgments and morality calls and this and this and that about us, the way that they do about lesbian, gays, bisexuals, and queer plus. Same thing, same ordeal, except we're the new target, transgender people, and they will hurt us. You just never know. We have to be very, very, very careful not to get physically harmed through disclosure. But so transgender women seem to be fearless anyway because they're in a defensive position when it comes to society. They have to fight to be who they are because there's a lot of people that look at them and they clock them. And then they have to turn around and defend themselves. Where transgender men, we don't get as clocked in public. And they be hiding out as lesbians until they can. Or bisexuals or whatever. They hide out that way until they pass as male, and then they don't ever have to go through that fight. But we have other fights. We have other things that we're going through as a result of being treated like women by cisgender society. I made an announcement that I'm, trying to get my book published. And there is this feeling that I'm getting from these publishers, these literary agents, other authors, other writers, trying to run me all around damn mulberry bush to get this book published because we're not as in the headlines, or they're maybe not willing to take the risks on us that they take on transgender women. They don't have to be celebrities and rich and famous to be written about, to get books published, to have publishers pick them up. The self-publishing market is huge right now. But I've been advised, and I believe what he said, not to self-publish my autobiography because of who I am, because of the impact it's going to have on the sports world, with my family, and with me. It's gonna catapult me into an arena that people like Janet Mock didn't have to go through because her parents weren't celebrities. So it's anyway. So I'm having this issue with the media. The first time out, I was supposed to be introduced to have an article written on me where it was going to end up in a very, very large publication that reached a lot of people. And I would have loved to be a fly on the wall when the woman who did the article on me was talking to her editor, and the editor decided to either tell her or tell me or something that they needed my father's permission to release a story about me. Let me tell you about how young I felt after that. Like, I was 5, 10, 15 years old, and I needed my parents' permission to do things and to be who I am at the age of 60. And it has everything to do with who he is, not who I am. I suppose they either wanted his take on what he thought about who I am, or they didn't want to take the risk, or they just somehow flipped the script and ended up pissing me off, ended up pissing my father off, and then they ended up bailing out because of whatever shenanigans they were trying to pull with regards to my story. I want you to pay attention to something. If you're white and your parent is a celebrity, you don't have these issues. Look at anyone you want to look at, including politicians. They don't have this issue. And if they wanted to, if trans men that are not of color wanted to, they could be really out there if they wanted to. But they're not. So if you're black and you're trying to be out there, you get a whole lot of pushback. And I'm feeling that pushback from the literary world. And anybody out there who's writing something, writing a book, be it about yourself or fiction or whatever, if you're paying a company to write your book, those companies are the sharks that I'm talking about, that I'm trying to avoid. Publishers and legitimate literary agencies don't charge you to write your story. They take the proceeds and the royalties of the book sales. So if they're trying to get you to pay a bunch of money to tell your story, guess what's getting ready to happen to you? Probably. They'll just take your money and never write your story. Or they won't edit it right. Or they won't put you in the best possible light to make the best sales out of the book. They're not going to do anything right. So I'm swimming around in those shark-infested waters trying to avoid them, folks, and they're everywhere. Because publishers have put these literary agents in between them and the authors and the writers. So you got to avoid all these hundreds of sharks out there who are trying to do this to you, to find the ones who won't do that. And they'll have they'll have enough in their budget, and they'll have enough time and enough resources to edit your book and get it ready for market. What does that mean to my fans and people who have been wanting to read my story for years, a couple years now? More time. I want to get it out there, but I am not a publisher. I am not a literary agent. I am at their mercy, and they know it. So, you know, and then, you know, on top of that, according to them, I'm a nobody. Now, would they say that to a Sandy Koufax's son or daughter? Sandy Koufax was a pitcher for, I don't know which team it was, but my dad played against him in one of the World Series. But look, I read between the lines. I see what's happening. I may have to create some kind of... Okay, that's going to be for another video, another vlog. How creative I'm going to have to be to get people to take me seriously, take my story seriously, and realize I am not a nobody. That's not what's going to happen when this book hits the scene. Yeah, this nobody is all of a sudden going to become somebody just like that the minute it hits the door. So I'm not in the same category as just the average, ordinary person writing a book. I'm black. I'm a man. I'm a trans man. And I'm the transgender son of a celebrity. It's going to cost me more than they are saying it's going to cost them. To my psyche. To me emotionally. There's going to be a lot of haters out there that are going to be coming at me sideways. And there's going to be a lot of reporters where, you know, say you have say your autobiography or your life story is, I don't know, has nothing to do with growing up in the life of a celebrity. You're not going to be, you're going to be in a different limelight than the limelight I'm getting ready to enter. Because my father is so unbelievably famous, and he is a legend. I know this. He knows this. The entire media world knows this. So there's where this covert pushback, why the covert pushback is happening. And then on the other hand, I want to be able to use that as a platform for transgender advocacy and rights and resources and whatnot. I'm going to get that ball going too at the same time. So I'm juggling both worlds, folks. It isn't just one or the other. It's both at the same time, which has been incredibly stressful. I mean, look, you know, all this stuff that's showing up here has everything to do with that. How much stress it really is to not only write my life story, but to be willing to share it and to be an advocate and to be one of very few black, pro-black trans men who is saying that out loud in public. So, you know, like I said at the end of my last vlog, that we need to get it together. And when I say we, I don't necessarily mean we, all transgender people, because all transgender men, because not all transgender men are having the same experiences in this society. You got trans men of color and you got white trans men. Completely different experience. So, I may or may not choose to hear from both sides of that platform when I go live. I may not. I may do it, I may not do it. Because they already have privilege. And I want to create a space where we are listened to and heard, not just pushed around in groups on Facebook platform or any other platform, Google Plus, any other social media platform there is out there. We get pushed around. They try it. Oh yeah, they try it. It's happening to me right now in a group on that platform. She's trying to poo-poo me putting a post in there about the Law and Order episode of a military trans man. Woo! She is just trying to space me out, and I'm not having it. See, which is probably pissing her off, and eventually I'll end up blocking her because I don't have to take bullshit from people. I don't have to do that. I'm not the kind that does that, and I will come off arrogant. I will come off all sorts of ways to them, bring me out of my character to keep them from doing that to me. Because they feel entitled. They feel privileged and entitled to do that anytime they feel like it. And then they got a whole bunch of other people that'll back their ass up if they do it. And if I bark too loud or scratch her the wrong way, she'll report me to blah, 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 and I'll end up in Facebook group jail and I'll end up kicked off the platform. Whatever. That's what they do. They do that whether you're transgender or cisgender, whether you're heterosexual, bisexual, lesbian, queer, gay. Did I say all? Did I cover them all? Anyway, whether you're any of those acronyms or not any of those acronyms, if you're black, they kicking your ass all over that platform. And they do it the same way. We don't like what he said. We don't like what she said. We don't like what they said. And get your ass kicked off the platform. Because why? Because of privilege and entitlement. And want to take up as much space as they can. Well, hate to break it to you, but I'm the one that's going to be in charge of this live, and what I say goes. No matter what nationality you are, it's going to be run my way, or you ain't even going to be in the live. So, hate to break it to you. Same thing happened to that women supporters of trans men group that I had. Same kind of crap happened in there with the white people that were in that group. Getting all pissed off because, I was taking up a little bit too much space. It was my group. What right did they have to come in there and dictate what I do in my group? That's some silly-ass nonsense, but it's reality. Nonsense or not, they will go there. They will take you there. They caused me to shut that group down and never want to start it again because I don't have to deal with that bullshit for free. You can pay me to emotionally abuse me because I'm a black man and I was a head nigga in charge in there and they didn't like it. Well, fuck you, what I said, and shut it down. It's like, I don't have to take this. Not for being an admin and doing it for free and trying to help women transition with their men or mothers transition with their sons or whatever. I don't have to take bullshit off of people because they got issue with me being black. That's their issue. So I let it be their issue and shut it down. And because I started a different group that was just black only, Zuckerberg decided to shut that one down by crippling it. Disabled. They didn't even close the group down. They just disabled it, like they did the other group. This is that entitlement, privilege crap that they do, and then all the users are doing it too. So the employees are doing it, the users are doing it, businesses are doing it. Isn't there a song like that? Oh, I don't know. Something just clicked in my head a little bit. But anyway, we've got to take the bull by the horns and figure out a way to take up more space than we're being given to take. I did that in my career. I did that. And I can do it in my transition, and I can do it as a trans man, and I can do it without fully disclosing who I am. Depends on who I'm around, whether I disclose or not. Yeah, I'm gonna figure out a way. Hell, it may take me the rest of my life, but you know what? On my tombstone, you know what I want people to say? If I decide to have a tombstone and not be cremated. But that he was out to make a difference. Or he made a difference. In the narratives, in the conversations, in the US of A, and around the world. Despite all the pushback I'm getting from the LGBTQ plus and the heterosexual cisgender right and left, that I managed to make a difference anyway. And I've been doing that since I was, well, all my life. So this, oh boy, I've talked for a long time. I don't know if I really talked about everything I wanted to talk about with regards to the media, but I think I've said enough to give everybody a taste and a hint about what I'm after as a black man in the United States. With this undercurrent of being transgender man. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. God's gonna have to help me. But I'm out there. And I'm out to change the narrative and the conversations going on around the world when it comes to transgender black men. Transgender black women, they're already out there. I'm out to make that difference for trans men because I'm not living their experience. I'm living my experience. So, I don't even know what day it is. It's the weekend. Well, tonight is the weekend. And I hope everybody has a great one. And I'll talk with you some other time. Peace.